Paul, thanks for your presentation. I really enjoyed that. You touched on a lot of practical and technical work. We've used Mullen Creek to inspire some of our upcoming projects. Brad, thanks for your presentation. Some of the core discussion points are really similar in both of ours. Paul, definitely in the way that you approach or you look at carbon emissions in the building life cycle, be it the ongoing emissions, embodied carbon, and the size of housing outcomes that contribute to that whole of scale carbon emission of 39% that we spoke about. Brad, I also entirely concur with you, and I've got a slide dedicated to the industry having the knowledge but also the capacity to change the way, or to educate the broader market on how housing and construction has the ability to positively influence carbon emissions and how we as leaders have the ability to make that impact. We're design-led regional developers. We like to choose an area in which we develop first. We understand the core demographic and we understand that we can achieve the design principles, sustainability principles, the affordable housing outcomes and alike, which form a core brief, what we call our core brief, before we approach an area or a site to consider buying it. It's not a reverse-led outcome. It's a deliberate move to seek out a property in an area because we believe that we can have a positive impact in that area. As Darren pointed out, we predominantly develop townhouses and mid-scale apartment projects across regional Victoria. All our projects are within 1 kilometre of a train station or existing public transport network, so we can reduce or mitigate car use in all our projects and implement bike sharing, car sharing and other transport or green travel plan related transport initiatives. Our target has always been a minimum of 7 stars. We've never delivered anything under 7.5, and some of our projects have achieved a retrospective analysis at 8.2 in the Nightingale Ballarat project, and we're targeting higher than that at a project in Geelong and Ballarat at the moment. We always seek to include affordable housing as well because we believe that sustainability is more holistic than environmental sustainability. It's about building a community and when you're trying to build a community, we need people of all walks in life. Ballarat and regional Victoria more broadly has experienced rapid house growth, far greater than was anticipated. We have low stock levels and historically low vacancy rates. We have poor housing diversity outcomes, and there are no policy initiatives in place to deliver sustainable housing. Policy settings at all levels of government, federal, state and local, have been misaligned, and there's been no consistency, no voice or no communication in order to set a benchmark that we can all work to or that the market understands. Easy development opportunities have been had for short-term opportunistic developers. That relates to Brad's point about easy finance, lack of knowledge in the market about what people are buying and the like. It's created a demand for housing, or a sense of demand for housing, of a specific type of housing that is perhaps artificially inflated or artificially created. As a result, strategic planning has stalled. The easiest lever to pull has always been greenfield land subdivision because it's the quickest to market and it's the quickest to produce. As a result of this, we often lose valuable farmland and we become focused on quantity, not quality. At a higher level, the quick policy settings are finally starting to align in our view. We have a commitment to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 43% to 2030 and net zero by 2050. As Paul pointed out, and we've been doing the same research, the building sector accounts for 39% of all global emissions at the moment. The National Construction Code has finally set a benchmark, a higher benchmark, albeit debatable, to achieve a 7-star NatHERS rating. What are the constraints been to date? Why haven't we been achieving what we set out to achieve, what we all know here in this room believe to be achievable? It's because sustainability has often been considered an optional expense. It's if the budget allows. The expense of lower embodied carbon materials has been expensive, or they've been misunderstood. There's been a potential yield impact to developments if you're trying to properly orientate for solar efficiency. There's the additional expense of consultants and professional fees in order to achieve certification. The cost of materials to achieve a high NatHERS rating, double glazed or UPVC windows, insulation, better doors, and the like. It's also often difficult to quantify the value added through sustainability measures and then translate that to a saleability outcome. Talk to your bank or your buyer about why your home is $60,000 to $80,000 more expensive than the home 2 blocks down the road. What's the difference? How do I quantify a 7-star home and the savings to me as opposed to a 6-star home? How do I understand that this home doesn't have gas and that's a better outcome for me? How do I quantify that the impact I'm having by procuring 100% renewable energy? So I stand here to talk to us, people in this room, the city leaders, the developers, the planners, the architects, the surveyors, the builders, and say, what type of legacy do we want to leave as city leaders? Are we proud of the type of housing that we're delivering? We approach each project with the question, would we live in this home? Would we be content to live in this apartment or this townhouse? Are we proud of the type of housing that we approve or for which we advocate? Will we be proud of the Ballarat we leave for its future inhabitants? As business operators, is this the best housing we can deliver? Have we constrained the outcome in any way? Has budget had an undue impact on the housing we're typing to deliver? How can we improve on the last project? What did we learn from the last project? And will we be proud of this project in 10, 20 or 30 years' time? As parents and grandparents, what legacy are we creating for our children? And what planet and resources are we leaving for our children and for the housing of the future? So we think about the issues and the constraints and our opportunities as city leaders, and then we think about how can we improve on where we sit today? What are the solutions? I don't have them all, but what I can talk about from a development perspective is if we peel back the layers of getting a house on the ground, what does that look like? If it's in its fundamentals, we need to consider the legacy that that home will leave. Every project, whether it be the legacy of the city planner or our town planner or our architect or us as a builder. How would we build this home if the ultimate metric was not profit? Could we view housing as more than lines on a page, whether they be, this is where the window goes, or this is where the ultimate dollar's made, or this is where the driveway is approached? Would we pursue a more sustainable outcome? Would we pursue more sustainability initiatives? Would we deliver over and above policy or code requirements? Would we even build these homes? What if we held ourselves accountable for the outcome? Because somewhere, someone is paying. We had the benefit of working with Jerry McLeod and the Nightingale team to produce a 5-level building in town here. And part of the reason we engaged in that project, we went down that journey, was that we wanted to learn more. We wanted to strip back development and understand how we can approach it from a different perspective that's not profit-driven. And we've learned a lot from that process, and we're proud to take a lot of the principles that we learned from that and apply them on future projects. It's a great precedent because their motto or their principle is homes built for people, not profit, which is effectively that slide I talked about before. They work on key principles, key holistically sustainable principles. Sustainability from a social perspective, from a financial perspective, and from an environmental perspective. Social sustainability means, or talks about, encouraging social interaction through people. We're not building a home, we're not building a subdivision or a townhouse project. We're building a place where people will live. We're building a place where people need to understand who they live next to, rather than driving into their double-car garage and walking from their double-car garage into their living room, dropping the groceries off and turning on the TV. What if they parked out the front and they bumped into their neighbour? And every week that happened over 3 to 4 months, and then you have a friend, someone to look after the dog when you go away, or someone to water your garden when you go away, or someone to collect your mail when you go away. Financial sustainability is not the end price that you take to your bank to buy a home. Financial sustainability means building more with less, paring back materials in order to create a home that's more energy efficient, has less embodied carbon, and you end up, because what you don't pay for up front, you pay for at the end. Environmental sustainability is obvious to some of us, I think. It's about renewable energy, offsetting our carbon when we embody it, when we purchase embodied materials, and it's about material reuse and low PVC materials. When we think about that Nightingale outcome, we had a 925 square metre block of land in which now 40 to 45 people live. There's a couple of businesses operating from that. There's 27 apartments, but only 14 car parks. We only managed to sell 12 car parks in a building with 27 apartments. One of those car parks is actually used as a boat storage shed. The guy doesn't even own a car. It's carbon neutral in operation. There's a lot of shared facilities and shared amenities. No apartment has a laundry, so everyone goes up to the roof to use the laundry. It has a communal rooftop where you can book out and operate and have your friends over for a barbecue or have community functions or centres. There's a communal vegetable garden on the roof. So it ticks all those holistically sustainable principles that we've spoken about. And ultimately, it's about people, not profit. It achieved a retrospective NatHERS rating of 8.2 and it managed to sell, pre-sell in a market where I think there'd been 2 apartment buildings delivered at about 100 years, because people put a value, a quantifiable value, on sustainable living, on living without cars, on community, other than living wherever else they choose to live. People are willing to share a car. People are willing to ride their bike. People have a desire to live an active and mobile lifestyle. They have their willingness to sacrifice space and amenity in their apartments. And they value the inclusion of all people. And the above was consistent, not just for a specific demographic, not just for the 25 to 35-year-old woke people that live around here, but it's consistent for a demographic that's probably 22 to about 80 years old. So it's quite a broad demographic for such a small place as Ballarat. And we have a project around the corner from that in which we've applied a lot of those principles. We aren't Nightingale, so we do need to make a profit to get that building out of the ground. But are we sacrificing some profit for the outcomes? Yes, we are. Could we make more? Probably could. But it's about a legacy. So in that project, on a 2,300 square metre block of land, or 2,200 square metre block of land, we've got 58 apartments and 2 townhouses. It's a 7-level building which activates multiple frontages. It's a very complex outcome. We're targeting a 7.5 star NatHERS rating. We hope to achieve higher. We don't reticulate gas, never have in any of our projects. The building will be carbon neutral operation. We bulk purchase 100% renewable energy, which is then distributed, so you get a scale effect when you purchase for the tenants, rather than every single person ringing up and saying, Momentum Energy, I want the best deal you can give me. But if 60 people go to Momentum Energy and say, Momentum Energy, we want the best deal you can give us, there's an ultimate better outcome. We're also applying these principles and using the same architect from Nightingale to a project in Daylesford. The word eco-village is used at the moment but there is no broad definition for an eco-village, we don't believe. So we're trying to learn from the principles applied in projects that we've followed in Scandinavia and Mullum Creek, and the Brendan Condon's project at Cape Patterson, another project in Castle Maine, the name of which escapes me at the moment. Pam, you'll know. Paddock. Know very well. This is a site which is the last residential zone land in Daylesford, and it's a central parcel within that site which had something special. It's elevated above the rest of Daylesford. It has unimpeded views. It's very close to a lot of amenity. It's walkable to a lot of infrastructure. And some people in Daylesford say this land should never be developed. And arguably at a strategic planning sense, maybe 30, 40 years ago, it shouldn't have been zoned, but it is. We are taking the principles we've learnt from Nightingale and trying to apply them. Circa 30 to 31 dwellings, so 60 to 70 residents. We have a mix of tenancy, diversity of housing outcomes, so 1, 2 and 3 beds, from 60, 70 square metre homes to 190, 200 square metre homes. So that people can age in place, and we can hit that demographic of those people who are single, are a couple, are retiring, and don't need the 3, 4, 5 bedroom home. There's a community garden, an community EV charging station. We're pursuing a minimum 7.5 star NatHERS rating. Obviously, there's no gas, 100% bulk purchase green energy, so the buildings can be carbon neutral in operation. We're focusing on interactive community spaces, so the landscape architecture plays an enormous role in this, and speaking about what you're talking on, Paul, we've engaged a landscape architect who's very good at this, blending public and private spaces and pulling down the fencing and trying to maintain the privacy of a home, but encouraging community interaction that's incidental through maintaining an informal orchard or an informal vegetable garden. It's got a community focus. We're incorporating affordable housing. We have a memorandum of understanding across all our projects with women's property initiatives so that we can bring in people who may otherwise not have access to housing. And we're trying to pursue locally sourced materials for that site as well. This is the master plan. What we're attempting to do is deprioritise the car, bring the people into the centre of the project, and bring all those incidental interactions through this linear walkway you can see through the middle there. That's an existing driveway in the site in which there's some trees that should loosely be retained, some that maybe shouldn't be, but it's an opportunity to sort of act as an anchor point or an anchor location for the rest of the project. So it acts as a front door for some people and a back door for others, and acts as an informal vegetable garden, an informal orchard, and is that central space where you'll bump into people. So all the garden beds comprise perennial produce outcomes, so your thyme, your lavender, your rosemary, and all those sorts of things that are low maintenance but have a really good visual outcome. There's tree planting in and outside of homes that produce a mix of fruit and other things. There's communal compost bins, and then rainwater is obviously captured and reused on site. We're really excited about that project, and it's been a fair focus for us for a while. We've had a pretty ongoing journey with the city of the Hepburn Shire, but things are starting to take a turn to the positive, and projects like this we think is something that can help not only us advocate, but the city advocate for better housing outcomes, because there's something they can point to and say, look at that, can you just please go and build that again? Brad, I think I'm coming on to your point here where I think the industry has the capacity and the knowledge to be leaders in environmental sustainability. It's true that lots of our purchasers or people who live in our homes, the homes that we as a group here in the city build or produce, don't understand any energy ratings. They don't understand embodied carbon. They don't understand the ultimate living costs or the ultimate impacts their home will have on the environment. As an industry, we have a lot of that knowledge base. We understand the cost implications. We understand the requirements to get to that point. And we have the ability, the marketing capacity, to promote that message in a more positive manner. And we can take that to the general public in a much quicker, much more coordinated response than any government at any level could. So again, talking about that word legacy, it's our opportunity to educate and become market leaders, in our view, for sustainability in the construction and housing industry. Paul, this is going to your point quickly. 39% of the is a percentage of estimated global carbon emissions from the building sector. By switching to 100% renewable energy, it's estimated that the 72% currently exposed because of operation, which is operational carbon, can be reduced to roughly 50%. So that can be done pretty quickly and pretty easily. So I'd advocate here for you all, as developers, as home builders, to pull gas out of your projects. It can be almost cost neutral. You'll have to upgrade the mains to your ampage and wattage in your process with power core, but then you can pull your plumbing out. It's almost cost neutral. And it's something very simple and very easy to do. And then the next outcome is to procure 100% renewable energy for your purchases. Burning coal to produce energy has a carbon intensity of about 1,000 grams, so a kilogram per CO2 per kilowatt hour. Natural gas is about half that, about 500 grams of carbon dioxide per kilowatt hour. Wind and solar is 50 grams of carbon per kilowatt hour. So using renewable energy will reduce carbon creation by about 2,560 kilograms per person per annum, as opposed to burning coal. Reducing or removing or embodied carbon is the other opportunity for us right now. There's a lot of opportunities in pursuing, as Paul said, fly ash concrete, more sustainable timbers, and other materials that are locally sourced to reduce that carbon, to reduce embodied carbon. That's the next opportunity to reduce to 50% of the 39%. And it's up to us as developers and builders to share our experiences and collaborate in order to achieve that. I guess the question is why? Because the environment is our legacy, because early adopters have a competitive advantage when the market turns and demands better, because it's advantageous to be proactive than reactive, because incentives will come quickly. That'll come through competitive home loans, that'll come through planning incentives, that'll come through clean energy finance and new technologies. Developers of new technologies will want someone to trial them. And if we are the advocates, we are the early market adopters, we'll be the people who benefit from that. Somewhere, someone's paying. Thanks, guys. Thanks for that one.
Thanks, well done.
Cheers, thank you.